We met, yes. So the timekeeper is reminding the candidates they each have 5 minutes to make opening statements. They will then go to the audience, where we'll have questions from the audience written on index cards, and each forum participant would have the opportunity to speak for 2 minutes on those. So we'll start first with the proponent of question 4, Pablo Ruiz.
Yes, great. Thank you. Thank you all very much. Thank you all voters for being here and joining us tonight. I'm going to try to get comfortable. If somebody could just give me one of these, if you can't hear me all that well, I'm happy to speak up into the microphone here. First off, let me thank Normo for the invitation. Jerry, thank you for hosting tonight to the DTC, for pulling this all together, and I also want to thank AccessFram.tv for broadcasting this as well. My name is Pablo Ruiz. I'm the field director here with Raise Up Massachusetts. We are a coalition that is organizing on behalf of Question 4. And Question 4, as you all know, is fighting for nearly 1 million Massachusetts workers that currently do not have sick time. We are fighting for part-time workers. We are fighting for full-time workers. And we know that 34% of workers here in Framingham, in Natick, do not have sick time. As far as we're concerned, those of you that are parents, those of you that are caretakers for your own parents, shouldn't have to pick between a job that you need to pay the bills and a sick family member who needs your help. We feel that there's dignity in sick time. We feel that the way that we have drafted this it allows for small business to continue to thrive. There is a piece of this question that says, if you are a small business of 10 employees or less, you do have to offer the time, but you do not have to pay the wage. If you have a business that is 11 employees or more, you would have to pay for the wage. We call it sick time. We call it earned sick time because this isn't a handout. Those of you that are familiar with it know that nobody's looking for a handout here. We do think it's fair to be able to earn it, which means that over the course of the first 90 days you can't cash in any kind of sick time. We also know that you will earn it at the rate of 1 hour of sick time for every 30 hours that you work, right? We understand that is a fair system. We are excited to hear folks like StrideRight in Lexington, like Costco, that offer sick time, that say this increases productivity, this decreases turnover, right? Which affects their bottom line because folks feel secure in their jobs. Folks feel that they have a quality employer, which obviously keeps more money in their pocket and allows them to spend more in the local economy. So we are asking you all to vote yes on question 4, because nobody should have to choose between a job that they need and a sick family member that needs their help.
Great, thank you. Bob Luce?
Thank you. My name is Bob Luz.
That's
okay. Common affliction there. I certainly do appreciate the ability to be here today. I am president of the Massachusetts Restaurant Association, and I'm here on behalf of the Vote No on 4 committee, having to deal with ballot question number 4, obviously. First things first, is that I'm going to stand up here in front of you and say I'm the head of a business association, and I'm not saying that we should not have sick time. And that's a very, very different statement, I think, for a head of a business association to say. Our problem is with the ballot question and the ballot question process, because the ballot question in and of itself, the way a ballot question works is it applies equally to everyone, and it is what it is. And we think this is a very difficult subject to have that type of umbrella cast upon. I think the Boston Globe said it best. They just had an article that they wrote, and I'll quote right from them. They said, ballot questions are blunt instruments and not always the best way to enact complicated public policy. As Pablo's told you, and as you all know, this is a bill that is going to cover every employee in the state of Massachusetts, full-time, part-time, seasonal workers. And, if you think about it, our responsibility as employers, our responsibility as adults, is to get our children and younger workers and folks getting into the workforce. So, for instance, Sister Maureen over at St. Patrick's Manor in Framingham employs 2 of my nephews, 15 and 16 years old. They're learning life skills. For them to be able to have sick time, and by the way, be able to take it with no advance notice. They're not required to call in and say, I'm going to be sick today, and to take it in increments as low as 1 or 2 hours. Think about that. None of us in this room probably have a sick policy, if we have it at work today, that says you can take it in 1 or 2 hours. The burden that would put on the business, the burden that would put on fellow employees, and the burden that would put on customers that are in a place of business is unreasonable. And so we think that this is really an important conversation to have, but not one that can just be solely taken up through the process of a ballot question. We believe that it's a very important conversation. We believe that part-time workers learning life skills actually learn a lot from having to cover shifts. This is a conversation that employers have with their employees all the time. Many already offer sick time, and if they don't, they have policies that work so that it works to cover the flexibility that part-time workers look for in the workforce, as well as for the needs of a restaurant or retail establishment or anything like that. The other thing that's very, very important to understand, there's a big difference between working for IBM or working for Travelers Insurance in an office job. If I work there and I'm sick, voicemail is there to cover me. My email is there. I come in, I take care of things the next day. Sometimes my fellow employees will cover me. But if it costs $100 for me for that shift, that's the cost. In any of these other environments, retail, restaurant, hotel, the service industries, if you would, those environments have to incur a second cost because you have to replace the worker that's not able to be there. So instead of it being $100, and I'm just using a round figure, it now becomes $200. So it's extremely burdensome, if you would, on smaller employers. And yes, there's a distinction between 10 and 11. But if you think about it, a small business is 15, 20, 25 people. They don't have human resource departments. They don't have folks that are able to manage this day to day, and it becomes a very, very difficult and quite costly event for them. So that would be my 2 cents.
Great, thank you. So questions from the audience. So folks who have questions, if you could write them on those index cards, and we'll ask the panelists to respond to those. The first, there are a couple of questions here. They're related. And talks about cannot the legislature modify the bill after it's passed? In other words, could it be fine-tuned by the legislature if there are glitches with it? That's for both of you. Mr. Ruiz?
Sure. I guess I'd be curious to know, what folks are interested in modifying. I mean, as it's written, we feel like we've taken into account many things, that make this a fair bill. Bob mentioning this fact that it's unreasonable. I don't think there's anything unreasonable about protecting workers when they get sick, right? We know that there are workers that work part-time jobs, that work low-wage jobs, that are getting threatened, if not fired, if they don't show up for work. There's nothing unreasonable about protecting those workers, right? And so to hear, the idea that, working for IBM, you have these built-in systems. The truth is that more than half of those folks that make less than $35,000 do not have earned sick time, which means that the people that need it the most are the ones that are missing it right now. And so, I think this is definitely a bill that Massachusetts workers need. And I think there's, as I mentioned before, it's a way of respecting small business, and those that have already adopted it know that it increases productivity, decreasing turnover, and really helping their bottom line.
Mr. Luz?
Yeah, so I think the answer, first of all, Representative Walsh is here, so he'd probably be able to answer that even better. But I believe the answer is that this law would, if this ballot question is passed, it would be pushed back and worked on, and there would be different parts that may or may not be able to be taken up by the legislature that they could prove troublesome in. Again, but the ballot question as it is posed is what would pass and would be pushed back. So,
okay, good, thank you. Question, what about people who come to work sick because there is no sick policy, and how does this impact the productivity and their coworkers?
Well, let me take that first, and let me go backwards just for a second, because it is related. First of all, if an employer is threatening an employee that they have to work sick or they're going to be fired, there are avenues for that employee today to have that corrected, but more importantly, they should leave. I mean, that's not a good employer, and there's not good employers that have sick days, don't have sick days, that pay great wages, that don't pay great wages. That's just not a good employer. We're not at full employment. So, I can't take up and defend a really bad employer. Those are always going to exist. To the question of sick employees working, look, I mean, sick employees today don't work. They swap shifts because, again, largely in the service industry, these are part-timers, and they work a lot of different hours, as we all know, because we go out and shop, we go out and eat in a restaurant, we go to a hotel. Those are operations that don't really work 9 to 5. And so you have the ability to have a lot of flexibility. They learn how to work with each other, how to deal with issues so that we can overcome them and work them out for everybody's best benefit. They swap shifts, they take care of each other, and they're able to make doctor's appointments because that's the flexibility that the schedule allows.
Mr. Weiss?
If you could just repeat the question, I apologize.
This was, what about people who come to work when they're sick, and does this affect productivity and their coworkers?
You can imagine what it would feel like dining at a restaurant when a server is forced to come to work sick, and is spreading whatever illness they might have, right? I'd rather they not do that on my meal. I'd rather not do that, wherever I'm taking my business. I would rather that person stay home and get better. The idea that they should leave their job, I think, misses a fundamental point. That is, in a recovering economy, people are working hard to try to make ends meet. And this, as I mentioned, allows them to have the job security they need, that allows them to keep money in their pocket, which will in turn stimulate the local economy. And so, the idea that contagion is an issue, it absolutely is. Yeah. And we know we can decrease that, not just from the worker, but also with children that are, sent to school because the parent cannot stay home with them, right? Mothers and fathers in the room know that, your kid comes home from school sick because they're likely picking it up from somebody else who also went to school sick. And so we feel that that's all the more reason to vote yes on question 4.
Jerry, if I could just clear one thing up, because Pablo brings up a great point. I'd like to point out that in the restaurant industry and the hotel industry, we are already covered under the food code. Our employees know that they're not allowed to come to work sick. Our managers know that they're not allowed to come to work sick. They know the exact policies that need to be followed. So, in fact, that we don't put the guest at risk. Guest safety is first and foremost and paramount, and we're already covered under the health code in terms of sick employees. And again, they learn how to swap shifts so that they don't lose income, and it works very well for them.
So the next question from an audience member talks about that person's son working in the restaurant industry. He's not 15 to 16. He's a college graduate making $2.63 an hour, no sick time, no insurance, has federal jury duty coming up. for 15 days of no pay and the risk of losing prime shifts to his replacement. Can you comment on that kind of a situation, and what % of those with no sick time are actually only 15 to 16 years old?
Well, I can tell you that 1 in 3 jobs in America, the first job that an American has is in the restaurant industry. That's fact. I can tell you that 50% of the workforce at some time or another will work in the restaurant industry. To the point of the server making $2.63 an hour, first of all, as Representative Walsh knows, they're going to get a raise to $3 an hour during, because of the minimum wage increase that was just enacted. And, you know, not to make that humorous, our servers in Massachusetts actually have the highest wages out of 50 states. They earn more here than they do in any other state. But again, those servers, that individual there, again, with the flexibility, would be able to work different shifts. He or she would be able to work nights, they'd be able to work weekends, because that's what our industry does. And so juries do not sit nights and weekends. In fact, they sit during the day. And so, again, there's flexibility in scheduling. That's what our employees love about the industry. That's what an attraction is for part-timers, learning great skills to get into the workforce. And so I think they would make that work. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. There's not a perfect system in America.
Mr. Ruiz?
Yeah, I can't speak to the jury duty piece, but what I can tell you is the way that our question writer is describing their child's their college student's job falls, I believe, under those that are making less than $35,000 a year. Right? I shared that figure with you all earlier tonight. That is that more than half of those making less than $35,000, approximately 54%, don't have sick time, right? And again, whether it's a full-time job or a second job that they have that is part-time, that they deserve the dignity of earning that sick time so that they can stay home with that child, they can stay home with them, for themselves to get better. The proposal also covers victims of domestic violence. It also allows for folks to take preventive care measures. That is, if you need some time to go see your doctor for an annual visit, we're happy to give you that time so that you can stay healthy, versus reacting in a very expensive way when you get sick. And so we feel like these are very fair measures in regards to our part-time and full-time workers, and we feel like it's fair to the business community, allowing folks, again, to thrive in a secure job that allows them to keep more money in their pocket and stimulate the local economy.
And again, if I can, I will state again, we're not opposed to talking about sick policy here. We have a major problem with the ballot question itself. And again, I think a reasonable person would say that when a bill is when a ballot question's passed, if a ballot question's passed, where a server could get a text on a Friday night at 8 o'clock that says, "Hey, got a couple extra tickets to the Snoop Dogg concert," and they'd be able to say, "You know what? I'm going to take an hour of my mandated sick time so I can get out of here." That's not the intent of what a sick policy is all about. That's not what most of America has. And I would say that that's not a logical approach to how to look at sick policies with all employees. You got to really have a comprehensive conversation here.
Okay. Next question. Will employers be required to pay for unused sick time? And if not, will workers have a use it or lose it attitude relative to sick time?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for the question. Workers will not need to pay out the sick time hours. Once you earn those 40 hours, remember we said you are able to earn 1 hour of sick time for every 30 hours that you work. So you can imagine it's going to take a part-time worker some time to accumulate some hours, but we feel that's fair. but as you continue to earn this time, you are able to carry over up to 40 hours the next year. You will never be able to, use more than the 40 hours. So again, we feel that it's a fair measure. We feel that, we talk in terms of sick time, not necessarily sick days, because part-time workers don't necessarily view an 8-hour day as a work day, right? And so, this idea that workers are going to abuse something that they've earned is flat out false. The research tells us that. I don't know what figures Bob has, but in the states where sick time currently is offered, we've found that workers use 2.6 days of their sick time that they earn every year. 2.6 days. I think all of us could definitely, we all could relate to that situation where you probably do fall ill enough to stay home from work for about 2.5 days a year. And so what does that tell us? That says workers aren't abusing it. They're using it for the insurance policy that it is. They're using it when they need it, and they're banking it and using it when they need it. This idea of other abuses is just not true. Workers see it as a fair thing, and businesses do as well, increasing productivity, decreasing turnover.
Mr. Lowe's?
Well, again, so there's, just to that point, there's 2 states that currently have mandates in the country right now. Connecticut, which has limited it to employers with greater than 50 employees, and California, which just recently passed it, and by the way, exempted state employees, which was interesting. I'll leave it at that, and covers them for 3 days per week. And in neither case does it allow employees to take it in 1 or 2 hour increments. And, we want Massachusetts to be the best in the nation all the time, but we can't be the best in the nation at everything. And right now we're going to have the highest minimum wage. We potentially are going to have the most lucrative, most allowing loophole possible sick policy in the country. We have the highest insurance rates. We have the highest unemployment insurance rates. And, when you're talking about an employer that has 15 people, okay, not less than 10, not less than 11, but 15, he or she is the human resource department. They're going to have to figure out carrying everything over. They're going to have to figure out making sure that they get everything right. And, I think, it's just going to, unfortunately, what it potentially could do is open up a real freeway for plaintiff lawyers to look at something and say, hey, somebody made a mistake, but now, we're going to come in and pay for it, because we've had a pretty significant problem with that as is today. So,
Time. You've each got 30 seconds to make your best case.
Please, Bob.
Go ahead, you do it first.
Sure. So thank you again to everybody for being here. Again, we're asking you to vote yes on question 4, because we believe that as caring family members, you shouldn't have to pick between a sick family member that you need to take care of and the job that you need to pay the bills. We believe that this is a respectful and a fair question to small business. We believe that earning the sick time at the rate of 1 hour for every 30 hours that you work gives dignity to workers and provides really low turnover for employees and improving their bottom line. So we're asking everybody, please vote yes on question 4.
Thank you.
Appreciate everybody's time. I don't want to get in front of Monday Night Football or NCIS Los Angeles, so I will try to be as brief as possible. Again, it is a great conversation to have, one that we look to and we have with our employees every single day. Our problem is not necessarily with sick policy. Our problem is with a ballot question that covers everything under one umbrella, including full-time, part-time, seasonal employees, children that are learning life skills at 15. Yes, some workers that are graduated and have that are 23 and 24, getting ready to move into the workforce, and others. But we just don't think that you can take a one-size-fits-all approach to this. We think this is something that should go through the legislature, and that the legislature will give it thoughtful and great consideration.
Thank you.
And make it work for everybody.
Let's thank our panelists. On behalf of the Framingham Democratic Town Committee, I'd like to thank all of the panelists and audience members and people who participated in the forum. We very much appreciate your being part of tonight's effort. I'd like to recognize Representative Chris Walsh for joining us tonight. Thank you. And Town Moderator Terry Banerjee, good to see you too. Thank you.